Welcome to Positive Talk Radio. Our goal is simple, to explore evolving ideas one conversation at a time. So, stay with us as right now we present. And welcome to the show, everybody. Are you a mother? I know that at least half of you are, or almost half. If you're a mom and you're feeling like it's hard to get out, it's hard to meet other people, it's hard to meet other women who are also moms and are in the same boat you're in, and you really feel like you need an outlet other than what your husband or your kids provide. And even if, dare I say it, you want to be away from your kids for a moment or two, that's perfectly okay, because after all, you have to take care of you first. That's a big thing. And we've got a guest here who has made it her life's work and mission to take care of the moms among us and to help them. And she's got a group that she's formed that I was impressed. It's over 100,000 moms and some dads strong. And it's all about, well, we'll talk about that in just a second. Her name is Jenna Levine Liu, right?
Correct.
Hey,
you
awesome.
Nailed it.
And she is the founder and head bottle washer of a group called Sixx Cool Moms. And if you want to follow along, you can go to, I believe it's sixxcoolmoms.com. No, coolmomsusa.com. And you can
Sixxcoolmoms.com will take you there.
Okay, so you've got multiple places and multiple ways to get there.
Well, honestly, my company name is Cool Moms LLC. So when I first launched, before I was Sixx Cool Moms, I got the domain name Cool Moms USA. And when I landed on the name, I kind of didn't want to set up a whole new website. So I just had that domain forwarded to Cool Moms USA. So it all goes to the same place.
Oh, very nice. Now, is there a reason why? Is it because of the domain, how that works, that there are two X's in Sixx?
No. So there is a story behind that. There's two stories. I can tell you the story that I sometimes tell publicly, or I can tell you the true story. Which one do you want to hear?
Well, the truth will set you free.
So when I first started my company, one of the important things that I discussed with my IP lawyer was trademarking, because it's very important in today's day and age to be able to trademark your name to have that sort of protection. My company name, Cool Mom LLC, you can't trademark that. You can't register that. It's too generic words, Cool Moms. And it's also the quote from Mean Girls. So it's public domain. I can't trademark that. So she's like, you can't trademark that. And I was like, well, what if I put a 6 in front of it? Because there were 6 of us at the first meetup. And she says, no, that won't work either, because 6 is generic of a word. And so I said, what if I threw an extra X on it? And she says, yeah, that'll work. And I said, okay, we'll say, it's a secret between the 6 of us, or it's the extra X for the female chromosome. But in reality, the extra X is so I can get a trademark. And so that's how the company name came to be.
Oh, the fake story might be a lot more entertaining, but that's okay. But so let's go back. How long have you been doing this?
So I launched in March of 2020, 2 weeks before the pandemic. But I started my first group when I was 6 months pregnant, which was July of 2019.
And the purpose of the group, as stated, is, according to your website, it's Sixx Cool Moms was created to build a tight-knit community of fun moms and moms to be in the different communities across the country. And you have done a little bit of that. You now have
a little.
48 chapters across 25 states. Oh, there are some states that you haven't got to yet. You've been to Washington, and so that's which is where I am. So that's really good. But there is so much potential here. What was your initial motivation? Were you suffering postpartum depression and wanted to talk to other moms?
So actually, I was still pregnant. So most of my friends at the time lived in Northern Virginia, which where I am is about 45 minutes distance driving. When you're single, you can pop over for brunch, you can do whatever, you can meet halfway. It's really kind of not that big of a deal. When you have a kid, it becomes a little bit more of a challenge to pack up the car, go to the brunch, and then sometimes you just got to leave because the kid's like, I'm not ready for brunch like you may be, but I want to go home. So I realized that I needed a support system of mom friends that were close to where I lived. So I like to say what I do in any like basic suburban mom does, and I joined a bunch of moms Facebook groups. And I went into full panic mode because the vibe of a lot of these groups, it wasn't meetup groups. And if they were, it was very playdate focused. So everything was very kid focused. And the groups were a little negative. It was a lot of parent shaming, a lot of talk about organic baby food, like just being nasty about how other people parent their kids. And I panicked. I was like, this is not what I want motherhood to be. I don't want to be a mom bee. I don't want to talk about organic baby food and cloth diapers. It's just like not me. So I started my own group, which was funny because I didn't have a kid. So I had no idea what being a mom was like. It was blew me
You were about
away.
to find out.
Oh my God. When they tell you you don't know how hard it is until you're there, and people who don't have kids or are pregnant are like, oh, I hate when people say that. No, you have no idea. Once you're in it, it's like it's a whole shebang. Especially my daughter's 3. We're in what I call the trenches. These years are very, very difficult, especially on women, because your hormones are still balancing from carrying a child for 9 months, giving birth, and then all the emotion of breastfeeding, not breastfeeding, weaning, daycare, maybe going back to work, maybe choosing to be a stay-at-home mom. There's just a lot of pressure and a lot of change, and you really don't know what that's like until you're in it. And so when I started my group, I just wanted to make friends. But once I actually had my child, I started to be pretty open and honest about my experiences. I suffered from prepartum depression and postpartum depression. And I felt like people weren't really talking about it. They're talking a little bit more about it now, but a couple years ago, it was still like a dirty word.
Yep.
And I remember being in a mom support group, and I was the only one that admitted that I was struggling. And I knew others were struggling, but nobody wanted to admit that they were struggling. Like somehow having depression or being overwhelmed with the experience of motherhood was embarrassing, was shameful. And now that's not okay. And so I was like, I'm going to change that. And so I started being really honest and saying, listen, my daughter is a perfect angel baby princess, but it's really, really hard. And some days I don't want a mom. I don't want to be a wife. It doesn't always feel natural. It's a lot of hard work to do these things. And the more I started being open and honest about who I was and the struggles and being pretty authentic about the experience, people were really gravitating towards that. And they were saying, yeah, me too. This sucks. Like, this is not what I thought this would be. Like, you see the commercials, it's all beautiful and kissing my baby. And nobody talks about, when you're like, awake at night, doom scrolling on your phone, looking for other moms on Reddit who are like, why did I have a baby? I don't know if I should have done this. This feels bad. But that's the reality of what it is. It's a really emotional experience. And we feel like we're embarrassed to talk about it. And so I did that. There was one particular story that's not safe for radio, so I'm not going to give it to you, but I told my truth and it took off. Like, people were inviting their friends. Everyone was talking about us. They were saying this group is really funny. You have to join this group. It's not, your traditional moms group. And at the time I was working for Fox 5 in DC doing their political advertising. So I was not in a social media job. I worked in, politics. I liked it. I had no intention of leaving. But people were asking about advertising, because the word of mouth advertising that you can get from these moms groups is invaluable. If people work the system right, you can build your whole business just by making those connections. So people start to ask me about advertising, and I did it for free for a while because it was a conflict of interest since I worked for, Fox in an advertising capacity. But people kept asking, and it was getting time consuming. So I started to charge a little bit, and they were paying. And then I started to charge a little bit more, and they were still paying. So I had this light bulb moment where I thought, well, this one group is one thing, if I had a whole network of these groups, well, now we're talking about national advertising dollars, and I think I have a really good idea. So I reached out to a couple of friends that I had in different markets across the country. One of them was Skagit. I reached out to a friend I had there. I went to high school with her, California, northern and central New Jersey, Riverside, California, and Los Angeles. And I said, I'll give you 20% of the advertising. Let's do this together. And a bunch of them said yes. And that was March of 2020. My goal was actually to be an in-person sort of event platform. I wanted to get moms together. I wanted people to meet up and then bring those friendships back to the Facebook group, right? Because if we have their eyeballs, then we get the advertising, but we really want them to make friends and take it offline, right? We want the community aspect. You have to be in person. Online was great for the pandemic, but the in-person interaction, that connection, the empathy that you get when you're looking at somebody, that was really what I was looking for. Launched my LLC 2 weeks later. It was March 15th. And I was like, oh my God, what are we going to do? But unfortunately, COVID was absolutely terrible. It was a terrible experience for so many people. I have nothing positive to say about it. But the silver lining for me is that moms were home, virtual learning with their children, oftentimes working full-time jobs, not being able to leave, being totally isolated, staring at screens all day. And they were like, oh my God, this is a true and utter nightmare. I feel very much alone. And so we blew up. People were coming to us in droves. New groups were starting. People were looking for community, looking for an outlet, looking for somebody to say, yeah, this sucks. My kid sucks today. I don't want to do this right now. Like, this is just an awful experience. And also just watching people dying the way they were dying in the beginning, the collective fear and trauma, it bonds people, and it really did bond people with us. And now that, the pandemic is not over, right? It's still out there, but obviously things are loosened up. People are going back out into the world. The events are picking back up, and we're seeing the beauty of these people who have talked online for 2 years and kind of know each other, actually meeting in person and forming these friendships. And it's so hard to make friends, genuine friends, people who understand you and can see you and want to do the same things that you do. And once you get a friend who likes the same terrible movies you like, likes pineapple on their pizza, which I do, but like everyone gives me shit for it. I don't understand. I don't know if I could curse on your show. You could bleep it out. I don't understand why. I was like, pineapple on your pizza is delicious. Let me live my life. But that kind of thing, finding people with a common interest, finding people who don't want their entire identity to be about being a mom, because mine's not. My name is Jenna Levine Liu, and I am my own person. I am Poppy's mother. I am Christian's wife, but I am not exclusively either of those two things. And I think in order to be a good parent, you need to have a good sense of self and a good identity of yourself.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. And it starts with that fateful day when you and your significant other decide that, you got nothing else to do. Let's go have a moment. And so you go have a moment, and then 2 weeks later or 3 weeks later, you find that this little thing that you just went Weedle on is now blue. And it starts there because, I've never been pregnant, I have to say.
Yeah, Kevin, you haven't? Have you tried? I don't think you've tried hard enough.
Apparently I haven't tried hard enough, but my wife was pregnant a couple of times, and we did have a couple of boys, and they were 9-pounders. I tell you, what goes on with a woman's body during the course of that 9 months is nothing short of frightening. I can't imagine going through all of that. And then the day my wife went into labor with our first son, I came home because she called me, and I came home, and she looked at me with terror in her eyes about what in the hell is my body about to go through over the next, 24 hours or whatever. And it turned out to be an easy pregnancy. She did it without any medication, which I found to be just
not all heroes wear capes, Kevin.
That's exactly right.
I was doped up to my gills. I was
Yeah.
not here to be a hero. I went into the hospital and asked for an epidural, and they're like, "You're not in labor yet." I said, "I don't care." I'm joking, all in jest, but I do remember when they said, "Okay, it's time to start pushing." And I said, "Are you sure?" And I started like shaking. I was like, "Oh my god!" Because when you like, there's no turning back. This is the reality of what you have to do. And at the moment, I remember thinking, "Wow, like women everywhere. It's time, like, unless you're getting a C-section, but if you're doing vaginal birth, that okay, it's time to start pushing." Does everybody just go, I don't wanna? Can we
Can
slow
we
it
can we
down?
schedule this for Tuesday? I just doesn't don't feel like it today. No,
Yeah.
my wife was very much that way in that because when you've never gone through something, you don't have any idea what it's going to require or what to push or what not, and all that kind of stuff. And so it's a major deal. And then,
Did she forget?
huh?
Did she forget?
She did. That's why we had two. Because she and they were 3 years apart, but she pretty much forgot. Well, see, it wasn't as bad for her because she didn't go. She didn't feel like she had that medication and all that kind of stuff. The tough part for her was after the babies were born and then being the mom and really delving into being a really good mom and that kind of stuff. She had nobody that was around her that had children of the same age for her to sit with and talk about and say, so what do you do when the kids got a diaper and you're holding him in your arm and he has diarrhea and now you have shit dripping down your elbow to the ground and you're in Albertsons? What do you do? you know because there was nobody around to tell her it's okay. It
Oh,
happens
I'm
to
so
everybody.
sorry she had that experience.
Well, that's what happens when you have a kid and you feed them the wrong thing at the wrong time. But
Yeah, that is true.
so but that I mean that's all part of life. But when you don't have, which is why I'm so committed. And we haven't known each other long. What about 30 minutes or so?
I
But
know it's been a lifetime.
I am so committed to supporting you, your work, and the moms out there so that they can get together. My son's wife, which would make her my daughter-in-law, by the way. Um,
You're like, I don't see her that way though.
yeah, no, and she they got pregnant over beer and video games, and they weren't married, but they decided to get married and that kind of thing. But she had postpartum depression. They've had their child is on the spectrum and stuff, so it hasn't been easy for them and to navigate through this. And he's in the Air Force. They were in Tokyo, now they're in London, and so she doesn't have the support network that a young mother needs to navigate through all this stuff that happens when you've got a baby, then a toddler, and are you doing the right thing? Are you disciplining the right way? Are they eating the right? You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
that's why your group is so vital, because you provide an outlet for people to get together and laugh a little bit, have a glass of wine, and think about what they're doing, and understand that they're not alone. This has happened before. This happens to people all over the planet all the time, but nobody recognizes that. Does that make
Or
sense?
as somebody once told me when I was like, I'm really nervous about giving birth, and the line is, women have been squatting in fields for years. Get over it. You'll be all right.
Oh, I've heard that too, and it's like, oh, sure, that's easy to say. I,
Yeah.
I I was with my wife when she was going through that. I wanted nothing to do with anything below her shoulders at that point. Because it's
Yeah.
hard.
They asked me if I wanted a mirror, and I was like, no, I'm all set. I don't need to see it. I feel it. I don't need to see it.
Yeah, and when you go through that, and then you don't, it's kind of like if you were going to do like a marathon, and it was going to be a real, you train for the marathon, you do that, and then you go run the marathon, then you can have like a week off to just relax and enjoy yourself. It doesn't work like that when you're
No, no. And then you hit a point, And every woman feels this way, and if they say that they don't, they're liars. But you get to a point where all the balloons have deflated and all the meals stop coming over, and you have this baby, and you're like, oh, this is permanent. Like, I have this baby, and it's not all the attention and the beauty, and then you actually have a baby, and people will stop coming around, and you have to figure that out. And that's the hard part, because the fantasy of what it's like to have a child and the reality of it are two very, very different things. And if you don't set yourself up for success, it can be very hard in the back end to do it.
I got a perfect example about that. When you have a baby and they bring them to you, and it's like you're going to suckle and the baby's going to suckle at your breast, and it's going to be a rewarding. It's going to be a great experience for you, and it's going to be a bonding time for you and the little one. Um, our second son was what I would like to call a heavy sucker, and it's so
You rip that nipple clean off, huh?
after about 2 weeks, she was like, she started literally crying when it was time to feed the baby. But nobody told her that there are devices that you can use to make it a lot easier for you, because she didn't have the support group that was necessary. So, like, I suspect that there are moms that are in your group that said, "Oh, honey, I remember when that happened, and it was hard for me, and this is what I did to be able to make it so that it wasn't horrible." And that's why your group is so important to me.
And I actively chose not to breastfeed. I never tried. I knew I wasn't going to. From the very beginning, I chose not to. And they don't tell you about that either, because your milk still comes in. So my boobs swelled up. I had like triple D, giant, rock hard porn star boobs with like veins. And it was the most painful experience. It was way more painful than giving birth. And you can't express, because then you're just going to keep producing. So you just have to wait until it goes away. It's a brutal experience, but nobody told me about that. And the reason I chose not to breastfeed is that because I had prepartum depression. So I knew I was pregnant probably a week before I realistically should have, because I instantly just didn't feel right. I felt sad and helpless, which was not something I was normally used to feeling. So it was really strange for me. I was like, what is this? And I was pregnant, and I was like, cool. And so my first trimester, I was so depressed. I could not find joy in the fact that I was pregnant. I talked to my doctor, and they were just like, yeah, sometimes it'd be like that. And they gave me the name of a therapist who costs $500 an hour and doesn't take insurance, and a support group that meets on Tuesdays at 10 a.m. And I had a full-time job, and I was like, thanks for nothing, guys. And second trimester, I was okay, but I like a light switch to the day. I was fine. But I knew that I would have the predisposition for postpartum depression. So because I knew that, and I knew that I didn't want this experience to be super, super miserable, I did a couple of things, which was I wasn't going to breastfeed. So that way I knew I could, pass my baby off to my husband, and he could
Right.
feed her formula, that it wouldn't have to be attached to me in a way that would be overwhelming if I needed to take a break, which I needed to take a lot of breaks. So I did that. We got a night nanny, which I took a lot of heat for, because people somehow think that you should be a martyr if you're going to have a kid. And I didn't feel that way. My husband and I saved up a lot of money so that we could get a night nanny for that first 2 months, so that we can enjoy the experience of having a newborn a little bit more. And it was a game changer. So people who are really, really tired and not really thriving in the environment, this was sort of an option that I could put out there. Like, this is what I did. And people were like, oh, I didn't even think that I could do that. Or they felt guilty. It's always the guilt. It's always, am I a bad mom for not breastfeeding? Am I a bad mom for not waking up in the middle of the night? No, you got to survive. Your kid's going to be fine one way or the other. They're going to be much happier if you're happy than having you scream at them at 2 a.m. because you're just overtired. So I did those couple of things, and I didn't really have postpartum depression until 8 weeks. I slipped taking my daughter out of the tub, and I fell and I fractured my elbow.
Ow.
Yeah, it sucked. And my husband could only take an additional week off of work, so I was home with a 9-week-old and a fractured elbow, and every time I picked her up, it hurt. And every time I fed her, it hurt. And every time I did anything, it hurt. And I was in pain for such a long period of time that it really prevented me from bonding with my daughter. It took a really long time because I just associated her with being in pain.
Right.
And the postpartum depression I got after that was world rocking. So I fully understand people going through that experience, and I really desperately want to help moms through that. But I also want to teach them about the dangers of immediately getting on an antidepressant, because I was put on Zymbalta, which is duloxetine, and that is never a drug that should ever be prescribed for short-term issues and never for postpartum depression. The withdrawal from that particular SSNRI took just about as long as being on it, and the withdrawal was so much worse than the depression ever was. I would have given anything at the time that I was withdrawing to feel the way I felt before I went on that medicine, because it mimics mania, and I've never experienced mania. So I'm like, what is going on? And the doctors don't know about it because the pharmaceutical companies don't really tell them about it. And so it's like this unspoken rule, because when I put that story out there, I was getting messages from people in droves talking about the experience specifically of Effexor and Zymbalta and what it was like to withdraw from those, from postpartum depression specifically. And it was making the depression worse. It was making people suicidal. It was causing people to commit suicide. It's not, I think we're a little bit too quick to give out antidepressants. Not people need them 100%. I'm not against them, but I do think that if you're going to go on an antidepressant, the doctor has every right in the world to tell you what it's going to be like if you need to switch or if you're going to go off of it at a certain point in time.
And in my opinion, anything that has severe withdrawal attached to it is not a good thing for you to be hanging around doing and stuff. You know, you've been through the wars, as it were, with. So I can understand if you're sitting here going, wait a minute, Christian, you want to have another child?
No, we're not having another kid. No, so we thought about it, right? We've talked about it. I'm 38, my husband's 43. If we wanted to have another kid, it would have to be, fairly soon, right? It's not that you can't have kids in your 40s. It's just it gets a little bit harder, a little bit more complicated. And we
I
just decided that we have this one beautiful, perfect child that we love, and we have a happy little family. We can give her everything and all this attention. Another kid, I cannot see it adding anything, but only taking away from what we already have. And full stop, didn't enjoy the experience of having an infant enough to ever do it again. I'm
well,
good.
and plus the fact that when if you and your husband were to have another baby, now he's 43.
Mhm.
He's 43, so it would be 44 or maybe 45 before the baby was born. So that means that when that child turns 20, he'll be my age. I'm far, far too old to have a 20-year-old kid in my house.
How old are your kids?
30, 34, and 31.
Yeah, you know what? I think medicine is incredible, and I love that people can have kids later and later. There's something so beautiful about that, and everybody's decision is their own. I offer no judgment. You want to have 10 kids, do it. You want to have no kids, do it. It's your life. You have to be happy. You have to be truthful to who you are. And for me and my family, I'm good. One is good. She's good.
Oh yeah. Well, and
Her daycare is as much as my mortgage.
yeah, I can imagine. I can
It's great.
imagine. Yes, and so she's my ex-wife now, so I can talk about her freely. But but it's like, but children do something to a female body. It's like every time she sneezes, she pees,
Oh
and
yeah, I pee myself. Yeah.
and so it becomes tough. And you're right. You need to live your life to make you, and you're such a vibrant soul and such a
Oh, thanks.
energetic person. Are you back to work, by the way?
Well, this is
This
my
is your job now.
yeah, I quit my full-time job in November of 2020. So I worked through that political cycle, and then I told my boss that I was taking time off to be with my daughter, because
Now, I'm not gonna talk about Fox News, but yours was a local affiliate, not the
Yeah, yeah,
national.
yeah. So the local affiliate, really cool. People were always a little bit uppity about it. Not uppity. Ooh, shoot, take that out. Bad word. People were a little bit weird about it, right? Because they think Fox News, and although we were owned by Fox Corporate, you have to follow the area, and DC is a fairly liberal area. You can't be super conservative. Nobody's going to watch your station. So it wasn't like that. But I did have a bunch of white male managers in their 50s and such who said some things to me that made it very clear that I was like, I'm not working for you anymore. This is ridiculous. I believe the exact quote was, I asked for 9 to 5 hours because I had 8:30 to 5:30, and I said, can I have 9 to 5 so I can pick my daughter up or drop her off at daycare, because either way I can't do it. And he said, no, we're not going to give you that, but I don't really think that's your problem. I think your problem is that now that you have a family and a child, you have to think about your priorities and your career and what that looks like. And it went into my ear, and it hit this point in my brain where I said, well, I'm going to make my exit plan then, because this is not how we treat the people who bring life into this world. So I left in
You
2020 and focused on Sixx Cool Moms full time. And so this is my full-time job now.
Well, I'm so glad you're doing this because it is vital. It's very important for everybody because
Yeah.
by the way, I cannot believe. Well, no, take that back. Take that back. Take it back, because I do believe that there are men out there that do not value the contribution that women make to our society in total, and that is just one of the reasons Positive Talk Radio exists, is because that is just wrong. People are people, and we all need to work together. And you're bringing people into the world, and you're raising a kid, and so making a half hour. We're not talking about going from graveyard to day shift, taking somebody else's job. We're talking about a half hour on either end.
Yeah, it was that was a choice that that they made. And it just, it's okay though, because there are people who fit that environment, and then there are people who don't. And the favorite part is that everybody wound up working remotely because of the pandemic, so it didn't matter anyway. It's like kind of an old school corporate control mechanism that people aren't beholden to anymore, because people have proven that they can work remotely, so you don't really need to be in an office. So I'll always be a remote company where I will never require anybody to come into an office. I'm not a butts and seats person. You get your job done and you pretty much won't hear from me. I was never a person that liked working in a corporate environment, and it's probably because I don't like authority figures. So it's good I own my own company now. I don't have to answer to anybody but myself. But
I got I got told that once, it said, you're not a very good employee. It's like,
I wasn't a good employee. I actually very recently texted my old managers and apologized to them. I said I was a pain in the ass, and I am truly sorry about that, because I get it now. Because as I, have a huge team, it is really, really, really challenging to manage personalities of a bunch of different people. So I did apologize, because I was like a pain in the ass. I was a talented employee, but I kind of just didn't want to be told what to do. And my mom agrees. You can't tell you what to do. I will say this though. I'm not alone there. A lot of the women I talk to, and I have a really big subset of moms in business. I have a business babes group. And so the best part of my community are the business moms, because those are the people that keep all the communities thriving. Women in business have a vested interest in seeing a thriving community, because it means that people have money to spend. If they have money to spend, they might spend it with them. So these women are really the biggest community builders, and they're so supportive and awesome, and I love them. But a lot of them worked corporate jobs until they had children and found that the corporate environment really is not set up for moms. It's not set up well for women as a general statement, but moms specifically, we're almost expected to work twice as hard as other people to prove that we're worth being there. And it doesn't make sense. Just because you have a kid doesn't mean that I have to have no understanding, nothing. I have to be treated exactly the same as everybody else. That's not how you treat employees. That's not how you get the best out of people. And I think that was a flawed thought process. And I think people are seeing that moms are just leaving. They just don't, they're starting their own jobs, their companies, they're, making their side hustles, their main thing, they're being life coaches and they're on marketing teams. Like, people are just tired of, women specifically are just tired of being told, you're not doing enough. You need to do more and more and more. And then also be the keeper of the schedules and all the doctor's appointments. And then make sure you go to the gym 5 days a week and drink 8 glasses of water and take all your vitamins.
You gotta look good too.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's kind of a lot of pressure all around, especially in the world of social media, which I work in, where people do get caught like doom scrolling, where they're just on their phone, just like looking at everybody's lives going by and feeling stressed out about it. Oh, feeling stressed out. Oh, why does this person look better than me? Or I keep getting targeted for weird ads,
Oh yeah, well, we and we're going to talk about that next time. I could go on with you for a couple hours. So next time we'll do more. You're going to come back on the show on March 15th on the KKNW show. Sadly, I've got to go do a show on KKNW now, but I really have enjoyed the time, Jenna. I really, you are delightful. You really are.
Kevin, you're delightful.
No, you're delightful. You're more delightful.
I got to find out the celebrity you sound like. He's from The Princess Bride. You have the same laugh.
Oh, not the guy, not the short little guy that said, I don't think you know what that means. No, what is it?
Yeah, it is him, and you sound like him. I swear to God, when I listened to your trailer, I was like, oh, did he get him to do that voiceover? But no, it was you.
It was me. It was little old me. It's like inconceivable.
Perfect. My ringtone right now is John Kassir, the Crypt Keeper. Best $50 I've ever spent while drunk. I will never change it. I do not care how unprofessional it is. It is the best voicemail. So maybe I'll have you do my next one, like the full Princess Bride.
I'd love to. I would love to. Jenna, if somebody wants to contact you, they can get a hold of you through your website, which is
sixxcoolmoms.com with 2 X's. You can also find me on Instagram at Jenna Levine Liu and Sixx Cool Moms on Facebook, Sixx Cool Moms, Instagram, Sixx Cool Moms, TikTok, Sixx Cool Moms.
And if you want to listen to this show and watch it in its entirety, if you missed any part of it, you can go to YouTube, my Positive Talk Radio. Well, I've got 2 of them, and I just, Positive Talk Radio, the YouTube channel, and this will be up, and you can listen to it in its entirety. I expect to have 100,000 views by tomorrow morning because that's the group.
Okay.
No, I'm just kidding.
I hope your ex-wife's vagina is back in working order. I will be thinking about her.
I don't think about that at all. I have to tell you.
I'm dead. All right. Have a good night.
I will. Again, Jenna Lou, thank you so much. And we're gonna play together. This will be fun.
It sounds unsettling. Okay.
It is unsettling. I got it. Anyway, so have a great night, and I will talk to you soon. And by the way, everybody, be kind to one another because each other's all we've got. We'll see you next time. Hey, thanks for enjoying this episode all the way to the end. Please give us a like and subscribe to this channel. This has been a production of PositiveTalkRadio.net. Please visit our website, oddly named PositiveTalkRadio.net, for more details about us and our mission, which is to provide great positive programming designed to inspire us all. I'm Kevin McDonald, and I'm proud of these shows, and I truly hope that you'll like them and share them with friends and family. So on behalf of our entire team, remember, be kind to one another because each other's all we got.